So I annoyed Philippe somehow, and he was giving me the cold shoulder, and I had no idea what I had done. So I walked into the kitchen where he was loudly ignoring me and confronted him. I asked him what he was upset about, and he opened his mouth, and I could tell he was ready to lay in, give it to me, let me know. But then he closed his mouth again and took a deep breath and said, "I'm mad at you for not being able to read my mind." I busted out laughing because I understood then. He was angry at me for something he expected from me, but never told me. Happy Wednesday. Welcome back to the Daily Huddle, your motivation playbook with me, Life Coach Franzani. This week we're talking about relationships and how they relate to our motivation. Communication is the key to keeping our relationships motivating in the first place, which we talked about yesterday. And since communication is such a vast topic, we're breaking down the who, what, where, when, why, and how of making sure our relationships serve us and keep us motivated. Today, we're exploring the when and the what. So first, let's talk about when to communicate in relationships. And for me, two principles really come to mind here. One, early and often, or proactively and consistently. Communicate as soon as is appropriate, and we'll talk about that next. And not just once. Communication never ends. Until we have mind reading software, you're going to have to continuously communicate. Second, when it comes to when to communicate, intentionally. So this is in reference to the early. Don't communicate on a whim or just because you feel some type of way. That is not the time to then share all of your emotions. It's time. You need to be intentional about when you're going to communicate. It's important to think about it. Do you need to calm down? Do you need to take a breath? Do you need to think it through? Do you maybe need to have that conversation when your partner or your boss or your child is in a better headspace? Really being intentional about when and not just jumping in because it's convenient for you is important. So when is it good for you? And also when is it good for them? Now, let's talk about what to communicate. So here again, I have two broad areas that I feel like are very important that you need to communicate to make sure that your relationships stay motivated, you stay motivated. Those are one, expectations. What people can expect from you and what you expect from them. Relationships cannot be one-sided. You need to share and listen when it comes to expectations. And it needs to go both ways. So, what could this sound like? For a friend, if you miss talking to your friend, this has happened to me a ton of times. We get so busy. You can say something like, "I miss talking to you. Can we get on a bi-weekly chat schedule and schedule a Sunday night call or something?" For your boss, who either you're on a new project, you're feeling uncomfortable, you just feel like you need direction and support, you can say, "I'd like to check in with you weekly so I make sure I'm meeting your expectations." For a coworker who maybe doesn't know how to keep their mouth shut about things, and maybe it's all good and they mean it in a nice way, but it makes you uncomfortable and it makes you frustrated and it makes you not feel like you can't trust them, you can say, "When I share something with you personally, please keep it to yourself." And an example for your partner, if you feel like you're not spending enough time together or you really are someone who needs to travel, whatever, you can say something like, "Let's go on a vacation every quarter, just the two of us." So that is what it could sound like to set some expectations with the important people in your life. Next, we're going to talk about the next thing about what to communicate, and those are boundaries. So these are limits or guidelines for ways that you want others to behave towards you and your personal limits with what you need. So what does that sound like? And I'm going to start here with a partner when it comes to a personal limit. When we aren't intimate for longer than a week, I get irritable. With employees, maybe, when my door is closed, that means I'm working on something important. If it's not an emergency, please come back later. And finally, an example for your mom. Starting your sentences with, "If you love me," feels manipulative, and I'm not going to respond to requests that start that way. So those are some examples of what setting boundaries and setting expectations could sound like for the people in your life. Because if you're like me, then relationships rank so high on your list of priorities and values. And even if relationships rank lower or low, being in relation with people is unavoidable. So it's so important that we're intentional with our timing and the content of what we say. No matter how well someone knows you, you can't expect them to be able to know exactly what you want or need or when you need those things. You'll always have to tell them. The onus is always going to be on you. Sorry, Charlie. Thank you so much for watching the Wednesday Huddle with me, Life Coach Franzani. Every week I pick a theme and every day we huddle around a topic so we can create our own playbook for motivation. Intentional ways to stay connected to our goals and show up at our best every day. I'll see you here tomorrow to continue our conversation on relationships. Give yourself an amazing day.